I was 73 years old when I realized I had become a ghost in my own home. Not the haunting kind, the invisible kind, the kind that paid the mortgage, bought the groceries, worked the graveyard shift at the hospital cafeteria. I came home at 2 a.m. to wet towels draped over my antique dining chairs and greasy pizza boxes stacked on the marble counter my husband Robert had installed the year before he died. I stood in the kitchen doorway, still in my uniform that smelled like industrial cleaner and reheated meatloaf. I felt the weight of 73 years settle into my bones the way it never had before. My feet ached. The bunions I'd been ignoring for 5 years throbbed with each heartbeat, a dull percussion that matched the bass thumping from upstairs, my bedroom, or what used to be my bedroom. Before I gave it to Derek and Amanda 8 years ago, when they needed a place to stay for a few months after Derek lost his job at the processing plant. 8 years. The few months had calcified into something permanent, something I no longer questioned. The way you stop questioning chronic pain and just learn to live around it. They had the master suite with the walk-in closet Robert built for me one anniversary, with the bathroom that had actual counter space and the soaking tub I hadn't used since before he died. I had the guest room at the end of the hall, the one with the single window that looked out at the neighbour's fence, and a closet barely wide enough for my winter coats and the 3 dresses I never wore anymore because there was nowhere to go. I picked up one of the pizza boxes, the cardboard still warm and slick with grease. They must have ordered it an hour ago, maybe less. Hadn't saved me a slice, though they knew my shift ended at 1:30 and that I wouldn't eat until I got home. Wouldn't let myself eat, because the hospital cafeteria charged employees full price now. I was trying to stretch my paycheck to cover utilities that had gone up again. I opened the refrigerator to put away the leftovers and found it crammed with their things, arranged with a casual confidence that assumed infinite space. Energy drinks, craft beer, Derek didn't share. Organic produce I'd never bought, because who could afford $7 for a bag of spinach? The turkey sandwich I'd made for myself yesterday morning, wrapped in wax paper the way I'd been doing since 1970, was gone. In its place, a note in Amanda's looping handwriting, written on the back of one of my electric bill envelopes, "Borrowed your lunch, will replace." She never did replace things. Not the lunch, not the shampoo she borrowed, not the $20 bill she'd needed for Brittany's field trip, not the space in this house that was supposed to be temporary. I closed the refrigerator door and noticed the sink, really noticed it for the first time in months. Dishes, a tower of them, crusted with dried food, some of it starting to smell. The dishwasher sat empty 3 feet away, its door slightly ajar as if mocking me. Upstairs something crashed against a wall. Laughter. More bass vibrating through my ceiling, making the light fixture rattle. My granddaughter Brittany, 17 now with her mother's entitlement and her father's selective deafness, had friends over on a Tuesday night, on a school night. She'd asked permission once, maybe 2 years ago, standing in the kitchen doorway with that practiced, apologetic smile. After that, she just started doing it. Why wouldn't she? This was her house too, apparently. More hers than mine, since she actually got to live in it during the day while I worked 10-hour shifts surrounded by people who at least said thank you when I refilled their coffee, who at least acknowledged I existed. I looked at the keys hanging by the back door on the brass hook Robert had installed our first week in this house. My keys. Keys to the house I'd lived in for 42 years, the house Robert and I bought when Derek was still in diapers, and houses in this neighbourhood cost less than cars do now. The house I'd paid off 5 years ago, with Robert's life insurance, and my own savings from 30 years of working every overtime shift I could get. The house I'd somehow signed over without ever signing anything at all. Something inside me, something that had been bending and bending for 8 years like a tree in a slow wind, cracked. Not broke, cracked. There's a difference. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. My supervisor, a woman half my age who still called me Mrs. Patterson even though I'd asked her to call me Helen, sounded concerned. Was I all right? Did I need anything? I thanked her and hung up. I didn't sleep, couldn't. I lay in the guest room bed, which was really just a double mattress Robert and I had bought for Derek when he went to college, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that I'd been meaning to fix for 6 years. The house settled around me, creaked, breathed. At 7:30, I heard Amanda's alarm through the wall. The shower running, Derek's heavy footsteps on the stairs. The coffee maker, my coffee maker, the one I'd bought with my first paycheck from the hospital, gurgling in the kitchen. No one knocked on my door to see if I was all right. At 8:15, Brittany's voice drifted up from the kitchen. "Where's Grandma? Her car's still here, probably sleeping." Amanda, dismissive. She worked late. The front door slammed. School. Then another door. Work, probably. Derek had found a new job 6 months ago, something in sales. Though I'd never quite understood what he sold and he'd never quite explained it. He left every morning at 8:30 and came home at 6, and somewhere in those 9.5 hours he apparently forgot that he lived in someone else's house. The silence that followed was different from the silences I was used to. No bass, no laughter, no running water or slamming cabinets, just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Mrs. Chen's dog barking next door. I got up, dressed in real clothes for the first time in weeks, not my uniform. Jeans that still fit from 5 years ago, a blue sweater Robert had always said brought out my eyes. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, really looked, and saw someone I'd almost forgotten. Not the cafeteria worker, not Grandma, not Derek's mother or Robert's widow, just Helen. I made myself coffee in the kitchen, noticing how they'd moved things around. The mugs were in a different cabinet now. My favourite one, the one with the chipped rim that Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary, was missing. Probably broken. Probably in a landfill somewhere. I found a different mug and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the old one I'd bought 5 years ago, to do my taxes and check my email once a week. It took 3 minutes to start up. I waited, sipping coffee, looking at the kitchen that had been mine for 42 years and feeling like a visitor. I Googled how to evict family member who won't leave. The search results loaded slowly. Landlord-tenant law, eviction process, legal rights of homeowners. Words I'd never thought I'd need to know, arranging themselves on the screen like a map I hadn't known I was looking for. 3 hours later, I had 27 tabs open and a headache forming behind my right eye. But I also had something else, information. The house was in my name. Only my name. Robert had left it to me outright, no joint ownership with Derek, no strings attached. I'd been paying the mortgage until it was paid off. I paid the property taxes every year. The utilities were in my name. This was my house. I could ask them to leave, and if they didn't leave, I could make them leave. Legally, officially, without screaming or guilt or apologies. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence, feeling something unfold in my chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close to it, something that felt like possibility, like a door I hadn't known existed, suddenly visible in a wall I'd thought was solid. At 6:15, Derek came home. I heard his car in the driveway, the heavy slam of the door, his footsteps on the porch. He walked into the kitchen and stopped when he saw me sitting there, dressed in regular clothes, laptop closed on the table in front of me. "You're up." He said it like an accusation. "Amanda said you called in sick." "I did. You feeling okay?" He opened the refrigerator, pulled out a beer, didn't wait for my answer. "Brittany's staying late for volleyball practice. Amanda's got book club. I'll probably just order Thai." He started to leave. Derek. He turned, beer in hand, eyebrows raised. When had he gotten those grey hairs at his temples? When had the lines appeared around his mouth? "We need to talk," I said. The words came out steady, measured, about living arrangements. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe, or annoyance. "What about them? This was supposed to be temporary." He laughed, actually laughed. "Mum, that was 8 years ago. Things change. We're settled here now. Brittany's in school. I've got a good thing going at work. You can't expect us to just, 'This is my house.'" The words hung in the air between us. Simple words, true words. Words I should have said 7 years and 11 months ago. His face hardened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I think it's time for you to find your own place." "Are you serious right now?" The beer can crumpled slightly in his grip. "You want us to leave?" Where the hell are we supposed to go? I don't know. And I didn't. That wasn't my job anymore. Maybe it never had been. But this arrangement isn't working. Not working for who? You're barely even here, Mum. You work nights, you sleep during the day. What difference does it make? What difference did it make that my bedroom wasn't mine, that my food disappeared, that I worked 10 hours and came home to someone else's mess in someone else's house that had my name on the deed? It makes a difference to me, I said quietly. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head, that same dismissive gesture I'd seen 1,000 times. We'll talk about this later, when you're feeling better. You're obviously not thinking straight. He left the kitchen, went upstairs, closed the door to my bedroom. I sat at the table, hands wrapped around my coffee mug, and felt something else crack inside me. Not the same crack as last night. This one was different, cleaner, like a branch that's been rotting from the inside, finally breaking free from the tree, leaving the tree stronger for the loss. I picked up my phone, found the number I'd written down during my research this morning. The law office of Grace Chen, specializing in family law and tenant disputes. I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. Grace Chen's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service that only opened during filing season. The waiting room had 3 chairs, a water cooler, and a poster about domestic violence with a hotline number at the bottom. I sat in the chair farthest from the door and filled out paperwork on a clipboard, while a woman who looked about my age typed at the front desk, her acrylic nails clicking against the keyboard in a rhythm that reminded me of rain. Occupation, cafeteria worker. Marital status, widow. Reason for consultation, eviction. The word looked harsh on paper, cold. But wasn't that what this was? I was evicting my own son from the house where I'd raised him, where he'd learned to walk and lost his first tooth and brought home his first girlfriend. The house where Robert had taught him to change a tire in the driveway, and I'd taught him to make pancakes without burning them. The house that was mine, Mrs. Patterson. Grace Chen was younger than I'd expected from her voice on the phone. Mid-40s maybe, sharp blazer, kind eyes. Come on back. Her office was small but organised, everything in its place. She offered me tea. I accepted. We sat across from each other at a desk covered in neat stacks of folders, and I told her everything. 8 years, the master bedroom, the late shift job, the wet towels and missing sandwiches. Derek's dismissive laugh when I'd asked them to leave. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in quick, efficient handwriting. When I finished, she looked up and asked the question I'd been dreading. Is his name on the deed or the mortgage? No, just mine. Does he pay rent? Any formal agreement? No. Utilities? Property taxes? Any contribution to household expenses? I thought about the $20 here and there, the occasional grocery run, the one time Derek had paid to fix the fence after Brittany backed the car into it. Nothing regular, nothing in writing. Grace nodded, making another note. Then legally, he's what we call a licensee. You've given him permission to stay, but he has no ownership rights. You can revoke that permission at any time. Just like that. Just like that. She pulled out a form, started filling in blanks. We'll serve him with a 30-day notice to vacate. After that, if he hasn't left, we file for eviction in county court. The process takes 60 to 90 days, depending on the docket. But yes, Mrs. Patterson, this is your house. You have every legal right to ask him to leave. Every legal right. The words should have felt empowering. Instead, they felt like stones in my stomach, heavy and cold. I paid the retainer in cash, $300 I'd been saving for new tires. Grace walked me to the door, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. This is hard, she said, but you're doing the right thing. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The drive home took 12 minutes. I counted every one. When I pulled into the driveway, Derek's car was there, Amanda's too, and Brittany's little sedan, the one I'd co-signed for last year because her credit wasn't good enough on its own. I sat in my car for a long time, watching the lights come on inside the house as the sun set. My house. The phrase felt foreign in my mind, like a language I'd once known but forgotten. Inside, the television was on. Someone was cooking. I could smell garlic and onions, hear the sizzle of something in a pan. Normal sounds, family sounds. The sounds I'd be giving up if I went through with this. I walked in through the front door, not the back like I usually did. They were all in the living room. Derek on the couch, beer in hand. Amanda curled up in the armchair that had been Robert's, the one I'd reupholstered 3 years ago. Brittany on the floor with her phone, thumbs flying. No one looked up. Dinner's almost ready, Amanda said, not taking her eyes off the television. I made pasta. You probably ate already, though, right? I hadn't eaten. She knew I hadn't eaten. I'd been at a lawyer's office arranging to evict them, and she thought I'd stopped for dinner. Actually, Oh, Grandma. Brittany, still not looking up. Can you do my laundry tomorrow? I need my uniform for Friday's game. Can you? Not would you mind, not please, just can you, the way you'd ask a vending machine to dispense a soda. I stood there in the doorway, invisible again. The ghost I'd been for 8 years. The one who paid the bills and did the laundry and worked the night shift, and didn't exist during the hours that mattered. Amanda got up, headed for the kitchen, brushed past me like I wasn't there. I followed her. She was draining pasta at the sink, steam rising up around her face. She'd used my colander, my pot, my stove. Of course she had. Everything here was mine except the life being lived in it. I met with a lawyer today, I said. She glanced over her shoulder. A lawyer? What for? I'm giving you 30 days' notice. I need you to move out. The colander slipped, caught it. She turned off the water, set the pot down carefully on the counter. When she turned around, her face was blank. You're joking. No. Derek. She didn't yell, just called out, loud enough to carry to the living room. Derek, get in here. He appeared in the doorway, annoyed at the interruption. What? Your mother says she's evicting us. Jesus Christ. He ran a hand through his hair. Mum, I thought we talked about this. I thought you were just having a bad day. I gave you 30 days, I said, measured, steady. After that, it goes to court. Court? Amanda's voice went up an octave. You're taking your own son to court? If I have to, this is insane. Derek moved closer, his face red now. You can't do this. Where are we supposed to go? Do you know how much apartments cost now? We can't afford. That's not my problem. The words came out sharper than I'd intended, harsher, but they were true, and saying them out loud felt like stepping into cold water, that first shock of clarity before your body adjusts to the temperature. Not your problem. He laughed, bitter and short. Right, nothing's ever your problem, is it? Just work your shifts and hide in your room and pretend like you're some kind of victim here. I'm not pretending anything. The hell you're not. You love this, being the martyr, poor Helen, working so hard nobody appreciates her. Well, guess what, Mum? Nobody asked you to work yourself to death. Nobody asked you to keep this house after Dad died. You could have downsized years ago. You chose this. I had chosen this. He was right about that. I'd chosen to keep the house Robert and I built our life in. I'd chosen to say yes when Derek showed up 8 years ago, desperate and unemployed, asking for a few months. I'd chosen to keep saying yes every day for 8 years. But I could choose differently now. The notice will be official by the end of the week, I said. 30 days from then. I walked out of the kitchen, past Brittany, who'd finally looked up from her phone, past Derek, who was following me into the hallway, still talking, his voice getting louder with each word. This is bullshit, Mum. Total bullshit. After everything we've done for you, after all the times we've been here when you needed us. I stopped, turned. When have I needed you? He blinked. What? When have I needed you, Derek? When have you been here for me? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I'm here every day. You're here, I agreed, but when was the last time you asked how I was doing? When was the last time you did the dishes without being asked? When was the last time you acted like this was my house instead of yours? Silence, not the weighted kind, just empty. I went to my room, the guest room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the double bed and listened to them arguing in the kitchen, their voices carrying through the walls of this house I'd lived in for 42 years. Later that night, after the arguing stopped and the television went silent and everyone went to bed, I lay in the darkness and felt the loneliness settle over me like a blanket. Not the absence of people, there had always been people around, but the absence of connection, the absence of being seen. I'd been lonely for 8 years, I realised. This was just the first time I'd admitted it. The notice arrived by certified mail on a Thursday. I wasn't home when it was delivered, but Derek was. When I came back from the grocery store, my first shopping trip in weeks, where I bought what I wanted, not what they needed, he was waiting in the living room, the envelope open on his lap. "This is really happening." Not a question, a statement, flat, disbelieving. "Yes, Mum." Amanda came down the stairs, mascara smudged under her eyes. She'd been crying. "Please, can't we talk about this? Can't we work something out?" I tried talking. "You weren't listening. Because you were being unreasonable. You can't just kick us out with no warning." "It's not no warning, it's 30 days legal notice. 30 days. Derek stood up, the envelope falling to the floor. "You know what rents are like now? First month, last month, security deposit? We don't have that kind of money." I picked up the envelope. Official, legal, irreversible. You've had 8 years to save money. Save money? On what? My salary barely covers. He stopped, caught himself, but I'd heard enough. Your salary. Not our expenses, not the household bills. Your salary, which apparently didn't include contributing to the mortgage that didn't exist anymore because I'd paid it off. Didn't include the property taxes I paid twice a year. The utilities that had my name on them that I'd been paying while working night shifts at 73 years old. I walked to my room. Not the guest room anymore. My room. I'd started calling it that in my head. Started reclaiming small pieces of language, small territories of thought. That weekend, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Small thing, petty maybe, but it was mine, the internet I paid $80 a month for. And I was tired of subsidizing Derek's streaming and Brittany's endless scrolling and Amanda's video calls with her sister in Phoenix. Derek noticed within an hour. "What's the new password? I'm not sharing it." His jaw actually dropped. "You're cutting off our internet? What are we supposed to do? Get your own plan? Or use your phone data?" "That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. Ridiculous." The word he'd been using for 8 years to dismiss anything I wanted, anything I needed, anything that inconvenienced him. "Maybe," I said, "but it's my internet." The next week, I called the electric company and removed Derek from the authorized user list. He'd been calling them to dispute charges, complaining about the bill, asking for extensions I didn't need. My name, my account, my control. I called the bank and changed my PIN. He'd known it. I'd given it to him years ago in case of emergencies. There had never been emergencies, but there had been 3 times he'd withdrawn cash without asking. Small rebellions, tiny acts of reclamation. Each one felt like picking up pieces of myself I'd scattered across 8 years, gathering them back into something whole. Grace called on the 28th day. They haven't moved out, I know. We'll file with the court tomorrow. The hearing should be scheduled within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, then it would be real, legal, public record. Helen Patterson versus Derek Patterson, mother versus son, homeowner versus tenant. The hearing was on a Wednesday. I took the day off work, put on the navy dress I'd bought for Robert's funeral, sat in a courtroom with fluorescent lights and worn carpet and watched the judge review the paperwork Grace had filed. Derek sat 3 rows behind me with Amanda. I didn't turn around. Didn't need to. I could feel their anger like heat against my back. The judge was a woman, maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked at me over the rims of those glasses and asked if I was sure about this. Yes, this is your son. Yes. And you understand that if I grant this order, he'll have 7 days to vacate the premises or the sheriff will remove him? 7 days. After 8 years, 7 days. I understand. She signed the order, just like that, 1 signature, and it was over. Grace walked me to my car afterward. You did good in there, stayed calm. Calm, was that what this was? This hollow feeling in my chest, this sense of having won something and lost something in the same moment.
He has until next Wednesday, Grace said. If he's not out by 5 p.m, call the sheriff's office. They'll handle it.
I drove home slowly, taking the long way. Past the park where I used to take Derek when he was small. Past the elementary school where he'd learned to read. Past the ice cream shop that closed 10 years ago and became a cell phone store. When I pulled into the driveway, Derek's car was already gone. So was Amanda's. I went inside, and for the first time in 8 years, the house was completely silent. Not empty silent, not lonely silent, just quiet. Mine. They were gone by Tuesday night. I didn't watch them pack, didn't help them carry boxes. I stayed in my room, the guest room that would become mine again in a few days, and listened to the sounds of departure, furniture scraping, doors slamming, Brittany crying, Amanda's voice, sharp and accusatory, drifting up through the vents. Derek's truck engine starting, idling, leaving, coming back, leaving again. Wednesday morning, I woke up at dawn, even though I didn't have to work. Walked through the house while the light was still grey. The master bedroom door stood open. They'd left it that way, left it empty. The bed was gone. Robert's dresser, the curtains I'd sewn myself 30 years ago, even the light bulbs. But the room was there, waiting. I stepped inside, felt the carpet under my bare feet, the carpet Robert and I had chosen together, arguing good-naturedly about beige versus cream. I opened the closet. Empty hangers, dust bunnies, a single sock, my closet. In the bathroom, they'd taken the shower curtain but left the rings, taken the towels but left the rod. Small petty thefts, small petty revenge. It didn't matter. These were things, replaceable things. The space itself, that was what mattered. I spent the day cleaning, scrubbing, opening windows I hadn't opened in years, letting the November air sweep through, cold and sharp and clean. I found things they'd left behind, Amanda's hairbrush, Brittany's old yearbooks, a coffee mug with Derek's company logo. I put them all in a box by the front door. Maybe they'd come back for them, maybe they wouldn't. By sunset, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh air instead of stale beer and teenage perfume. I ordered Chinese food just for me, whatever I wanted, and ate it at the kitchen table with the good china I'd been saving for occasions that never came. The silence was enormous, cathedral-like. It pressed against my ears, filled every corner, sat beside me at the table like a presence. But it was my silence. I slept in the master bedroom that night, on an air mattress I'd bought at Target that afternoon, in the room that had been Robert's and mine, and then theirs, and now mine again. I lay in the darkness and listened to the house settle around me, creaking and breathing, and felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Peace. 3 months later, my niece Sarah called. She was 24, just out of grad school, starting a teaching job in the city. Her apartment had fallen through. Could she stay with me? Just for a month or 2, while she found a place? I thought about it, really thought about it, remembered 8 years of wet towels and missing sandwiches and becoming a ghost in my own home. Yes, I said, but we need to talk about rules first. We met for coffee. I brought a document I'd typed up the night before. Printed at the library because I still didn't have a printer. Rent $300 a month, first month due before move-in. Utilities split proportionally. Shared spaces kept clean, guest policy. Quiet hours. Move-out date in writing, renewable by mutual agreement only. Sarah read it over twice. Looked up at me with something like respect. This is really thorough, Aunt Helen. I learned the hard way. She signed it, dated it, shook my hand like we were business partners, which I suppose we were. She moved in on a Saturday, took the guest room, kept her things in her space, washed her dishes, paid rent the first of every month without being asked, said thank you when I made extra dinner, asked permission before having friends over, treated me like a person instead of a function. We had breakfast together on Sundays, sitting at the kitchen table with the good china, talking about her students and my shifts at the hospital. I'd cut back my hours, dropped the night shift. I took a position in patient services that let me work days, normal hours, normal life. I was 74 now, and my feet didn't hurt as much anymore, and I slept in my own bed every night. Derek called once about 6 weeks after they'd moved out, left a voicemail, Said they were settled in a place across town. Said Brittany missed me. Said maybe we could talk sometime. I didn't call back, not yet. Maybe not ever. Some doors once closed don't need to be reopened. Some bridges once burned are better left as ash. But I sent Brittany a birthday card with $50 inside and a note that said my address if she wanted to visit. Just her. On my terms. In my house. She didn't come. That was okay. She was 17, still her parents' daughter, still learning what loyalty meant and who deserved it. Maybe one day she'd understand. Maybe she wouldn't. That was her journey, not mine. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself, the one who always says yes, the one who gives up your bedroom and your paycheck and your peace because family means sacrifice, let me tell you something I learned at 73 years old. Your love is not an infinite resource. Your space is not communal property. Your exhaustion is not a requirement. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you a person. Not a function, not a ghost. A person who deserves to exist in her own life, who deserves to sleep in her own bed, who deserves to say no without shame or apology. I water the plants now, the ones I bought for the master bedroom, the room that's mine again. I drink my morning coffee at the kitchen table with the good china. I change the locks when I need to. I hang up my keys by the back door every night, and every morning I know exactly where they are. This house is quiet now, but it's my quiet, my house, my life, and that finally is enough.